Today we're going to talk about powers of monomials. Now when you look at this, something that we haven't seen yet, it's a little bit different, is that we have 2 to the second power, and that whole thing is to the third power. So let's break this down one step at a time to see how this is going to work out. Here we're going to say, if we want to follow orders of operations, we do what's inside the parentheses first. So let's do that. 2 to the second power is going to be 4. Okay, so we're going to have 4 to the third power. Now, 4 to the third power, we know, is going to be 4 times 4 times 4, which 4 times 4 is going to be 16 times another 4. It's going to give us 64. Where this all ties in is that if we look at this again, we can say 2 to the second power to the third power. This time, let's not simplify inside first thing. Let's just take 2 to the second power, and we have 3 of these, right? 2 to the second power, 2 to the second power. Now we learned last time, when we're multiplying these things that have powers of 2, we can add them, which is going to come out to be 2 to the 6th power, which coincidentally 2 to the 6th power is 64. Now, if you thought, well, can't I just add these? That's going to give you 2 to the 5th power. So to do these problems, what you need to look at is what this 3, it's taking this whole thing to the third power. In which case you could say you go to it this way, as it's 4, you're having 4 4s, or essentially you're having 3 4s, I'm sorry, or you're having 3 2 to the second powers. Once you break it down like this, you see that 2, 2, 2, they all add up to 6. Here's the thing, here's the trick to these. 2 times 3 is 6. Okay, so when you have a power to a power, you can multiply them to get your answer. So in this case, you'd say 2 times 3 is 6. So if I had 3 to the 4th power to the 3rd power, since you're taking a power to a power, you can multiply those two. 3 times 4 is 12. You're going to have 3 to the 12th power, which is going to give you a pretty big number. You wouldn't want to have to figure that out by hand. You'd want to use a calculator, or you just want to represent it like this, 3 to the 12th power. So the difference here, when you have a power to a power, you can multiply them. Remember, when you have a power times, when you have 2 to the second times 2 to the second, then you add the exponents. When you have a power to a power, you multiply them. So that's how here, 2 times 3 gives us 6. But we can also break it down this way and say 2 plus 2 plus 2 gives us 6. So let's look at another problem. This one is a little bit more abstract, and you might have some of these like this in your homework. So let's say we have a square, and they're going to ask us to find the area of this square given that the length of one side is 3x squared y to the 4th. Now obviously this is a terrible measurement for the length of a side, but these are kind of problems you might have in your book. And eventually you might figure out a problem like this where you'd be solving something like this where you don't have a nice measurement of a side length that it's 12 or something. So we know that to find the area of a square, you take any side, so we can take a side, and you square it, because you take side times a side or length times width. If it's a rectangle, you take length times width. If it's a square, you can just take one of your sides and square it. So in this case, we're going to take that length of that side, 3x squared y to the 4th, and we're going to square that whole thing. So again, I'm going to break this down the long way first, and then you guys can take the shortcut. I'm going to say we have 3x squared y to the 4th. Remember, we're squaring this whole thing times 3x squared y to the 4th. Now, like we've done previously, when you have something like this, sometimes it's a bit easier to change the order. When we're multiplying, we can switch the order around, right? So let's do that. We're going to have 3. So I use that one, I'll put a line there. Times 3, got that one, times x squared times x squared times y to the 4th, that one, times y to the 4th. Now let's simplify this. 3 times 3 is going to give us 3 to the 2nd power, or we could just write 9. Might as well simplify, right? X squared times x squared, we're going to add those exponents because we're multiplying the bases. We're going to have x to the 4th, y to the 4th times y to the 4th is going to give us y to the 8th. Remember, we're going to add them in this case. Now, going back and doing this the other way, let's copy this down here again. We have 3x squared y to the 4th to the 2nd power. Now, we don't have an exponent here, so we know that this is 3 to the 1st power. So we're going to take, I'll put a little 1 here. 1 times 2 is going to be 3 to the 2nd power. X to the 2nd power times to the 2nd power is going to be x to the 4th. 2 times 2 is 4. Okay. Y to the 4th power to the 2nd power, you're going to take 4 times 2. It's going to give you y to the 8th. Now if we simplify that first one, the coefficient, to 9, x to the 4th, y to the 8th, we end up with the same answer. So you can still break these down this way and help you understand. Once you have a firm grasp of the concept, you can just take that second exponent, that power to a power, and figure it out. Let's do one more example. We'll do a little bit. These ones are where it starts to get a little bit trickier. If you have something like 2 squared to the 2nd power to the 2nd power. So now we have 2 to the 2nd power to the 2nd power to the 2nd power. What am I going to do with these? Now, we can write this all out one step at a time. Okay, that 2nd power is this whole thing in here. So we have 2 to the 2nd power to the 2nd power times 2 to the 2nd power to the 2nd power. I broke this squared part down, right? I broke that squared part down. I'm taking that times itself. I could break this down again. We'll copy this down to a line down here. I'll have to break down each one of these individually at this point. We're going to have 2 squared, okay, 2 of those, right, times 2 squared. So we got this one broken down, times 2 squared, 2 of these ones as well. Now we're down to the basic part that we know. When we're multiplying all these, we can add these exponents, right? 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. We're going to have 2 to the 8th power. Now here's the trick this time. Again, we have a power to a power to a power. We can multiply all of these. So if I go back here and I say 2 times 2 is going to be 4, times 2 is 8, which would also give us 2 to the 8th power. So as long as these exponents keep tacking on to the one before it, you can just keep multiplying them. If you have trouble remembering that, you can always break these down as well, step by step. That's all there is to dealing with exponents that have exponents.